Here we go. Okay, David here from G4 Guitar Network. This morning in this Google Hangout, what we're going to do is talk about the skills and how to make those skills relevant to learning the songs and teaching the songs. Or teaching guitar generally, and what we're going to do is talk about how songs connect with all that, and kind of differentiating a little bit between what we do and what your typical guitar teacher does. So let's just get started. The kind of the theme of this is going to be teach them to fish rather than give them fish. And the analogy that I kind of like to draw is that, generally, and I did this myself for many years, students would turn up, I'd say, what do you want to learn? And they go, I'd love to be able to play this song or that song. Great, let's have a look at it. And I'd put the CD on or the tape and proceed to work the song out, and then we'd just dissect the song and work through it bit by bit. And each week they'd come back and get a little bit more. But unfortunately, what that tended to do was I was teaching them songs that were often out of their scope. They didn't have the skills to learn those songs, so I was really setting them up to fail. And it's a common scenario that many guitar teachers do, is that we give students what they want, and what they want is to learn a particular song, but they're not ready to actually learn that song. So sticking someone in a 747 just because they want to fly a plane and going, there you go, off you go, and then of course what happens is they crash the plane and kill themselves. We're not quite flying planes, but it's just, in a sense, it's the same thing. We are setting them up to really fail and give up on the guitar. So what we want to do is look at how we can do this in a way where we're teaching skills without putting the student into a position where they feel overwhelmed and it feels too confusing and frustrating. So, Jeff, I'm just going to throw this to you because this is a topic that you raised. Can you tell me the question that you were asking again in your email?
Yeah, it was about interest, really, because I was thinking, okay, we're teaching the skills, and obviously this is really important. But I was originally saying, and I've kind of already got an idea of where this is going anyway. But I was originally saying, like, okay, so we're teaching the skills, but if we're not really teaching the songs, in a big way, how do we keep them excited about learning? Because obviously older kids want to learn songs. That's part of what they're there for, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, it's that whole, how do you balance it?
Yeah, exactly, and it's why we're all here. I mean, I don't think any of us set out to learn skills. We all want to play guitar, and we want to play songs, and I go, the kind of story that I give, which some of you have probably heard, but I'll say it for the sake of the video, is that, when I started, really the song that I wanted to learn was Stairway to Heaven, and, I was an absolute beginner student I was about 14, I think, when I first picked up a guitar, and I wasn't having guitar lessons. I didn't have a teacher. I had a drum teacher. I was learning drums. I was really a drummer at that point, but I was self-teaching on the guitar because the guitarist who I was trying to form a band with at that time, he had some really nice guitars, and that's what I did when I went to his house after school. Every day we'd get together. Anyway, I tried to learn Stairway to Heaven, and it was just impossible. It was so difficult. I couldn't even bar chords. I couldn't even finger pick or do anything, and I just thought it was impossible. And I even though I did okay, and I struggled with it for 2 years, and I could play it not too badly by the end. When I went to a teacher, I had to really start again because the technique was really bad. Everything that I was doing was a hack job at best. And so what we want to do is really, without throwing students into that kind of situation, we want to teach them the skills, but of course we want to make it fun as well. And so the answer is pretty simple, and I think you already know the answer, but really what we're going to do is, this question does come up a lot, and we have that thing of falling back into the old trap of what I said before, teaching songs. So the answer is simple, is that we use songs to teach skills, so we make it relevant to the student, but we don't teach the whole song. We don't say, okay, we're going to learn how to play Stairway to Heaven, or we're going to learn how to play Nothing Else Matters, or whatever other song that your students want to learn. But what we do is go, okay, this is a scale, or this is how we pick, or this is an arpeggio, etc., etc. This is a chord. And this particular chord and this particular scale is used in that song that you really like, Jake, or you really like Brad, called, you know, and this is how we play, you know, this is how the picking applies to that particular riff. And when you do that, we all know the students all sit up, they get really excited. Oh wow, there's that riff that I love, and that's the experience that we want them to have. But we want to also say, yes, but you're not ready to learn that song yet. Let's just get the picking right first. Does everybody understand that? We've got to get this picking right. And once we get the picking right, then we can bring the rest into play. So you're piecing it together through the skills. And they can certainly go home and look up the YouTube video and look up the lesson and try and do more with that song and take it to the next level. And some of them will, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. But what I want them to know is that I don't expect them to be able to play this song yet. And that's often a kind of subliminal thing that, or a subconscious thing that we do as teachers, is that when we give students anything to do, and that's what I discovered. I actually learned it through another teacher. But what we do is that by giving whatever we give students, there's this kind of underlying expectation that they need to be able to do it. So they come back the next week or the week after, or go home, and you've all experienced this, I'm sure, where you get students who say, look, thanks for the intro, I've done the 5-week intro, I know what to do now, so look, I'm going to work on it for a few months and I'll come back to you when I'm ready. And it's like, oh, okay. So you get put in that situation where you feel that the student thinks that they've got all they need now. They've got all the information they need, or they've got a lot of information, and they need time now to work on that information before they come back to you again. But that's the wrong, obviously the wrong result, is that we need to keep you on track, because what's going to happen if you do it by yourself is you're going to go off track. And the longer that you stay away from here, the further off track you're going to go. And so let me throw this to some of you guys. So I'll go to Aaron. Aaron, have you had this situation where you've had a student who, after the 5-week intro, says, thanks very much, I'm just going to go and work on that for a while? Have you had that before?
Yeah, I've had that a couple of times. One in particular, I wasn't sure though if that was just an excuse to try and get out of it, because they'd been pretty flaky with everything in the intro anyway.
Okay. So yeah, and then that could be the case. It could be where they're sort of saying, look, I'll just go away and work on it. And really what they're saying is that I don't want to practice as much as you're asking me to do, or I'm not as committed as I thought I was, or whatever. So yeah, I get that. So let's just assume that the student was genuine in saying that this is what's going to happen. That, you know, yep. I'm going to go away. I've got enough to work on here. And I get guys who do this. They go, look, I've looked at your program, Dave. You've got tons of materials there. You've got 100 hours of audios and videos and stuff that I can look at. I'm just going to go away and spend the next 6 months looking at it all, and I'll come back to you in 6 months. So I get it as well from where I'm at. We all get it as coaches. So what but I know when people go away, they're very unlikely to do anything. It just becomes another thing that aside. So the value in the coaching is something very different. But let's come back to the topic, and that is how would you, and this is, I want to just throw this at you guys, how would you explain to the student that staying on beyond the 5 weeks is of a benefit to them if they give you that kind of line? Aaron.
Oh, me. Right. I guess we could say how we've just started to get into forming the right habits, and I don't want you to go off and start losing them and have to go and fix them again later down the track. What we want to do is try and keep you on the right track. I can help you do that. Also, it's really easy to kind of lose the motivation or to start feeling disheartened in what you're doing. And if we can keep meeting each week, then I can help keep you motivated and make sure that we keep you on the right track to get you doing the songs you want to be able to do as quick as possible.
Great, excellent. And they're all very good points. And what you want to do is make sure the reason I sort of asked this question and put you in this position is because the best time to say these things is not actually at the end, not when they're telling you, I'm going to go away now. Because a lot of people, when they make a decision, it's very hard to get them to change that decision. They've already locked into that idea that, okay, this is what I'm doing. And to sort of reverse their decision, it feels like they're admitting to themselves that their decision is wrong. So the best thing to do is just take what you just said then and make sure you put it through the 5 weeks, that you keep pushing that message through that 5-week intro, that it's really important that you stay on track, that otherwise if you try and do it yourself, you'll lose motivation, etc. So coming back to the point here of relating the skills and making the kind of skills exciting and connecting to what we're doing, is that throughout the process of the intro, when you explain each skill, try and give examples. Try and show where a particular skill is being used, rather than being dry and just explaining, okay, this is picking, down, up, down, up, down, up. Because a lot of students will do that and they go, yeah, okay, I got it, down, up, you don't need to explain it anymore, let's move on. But whereas if you can explain the development of the picking and then give examples, just say, look, here's a song where the picking pattern uses this, and if you can pick stuff from their ultimate song list, then even better. That way, they're seeing that how important the picking is to playing the songs that they want to play, and just keeping that whole thing relevant. All right. So I've just got a couple of points here, and this is a pretty simple topic, as you can see. It's not going to take a lot, so we'll probably expand out on this. If anyone's got any questions, by the way, feel free just to stick your hand up and ask. Now, the second point that I would make here is to be selling the advantages of skill development, and that's something that often gets missed. In everything you do, you want to constantly be making students aware of the advantage, because although they're obvious to you, they're not always obvious to them. So let me just I'll throw it here to Ben. Can you hear me there, Ben?
Hello. I can.
Yep. Excellent, Ben. So what's an advantage of learning skills, rather than just what's something that you could say to a student, here's an advantage of learning a particular skill?
How it helps you learn the songs faster because you have all the tools already. So rather than having to learn what seems to be a new thing with each song, you just think, I've got this, put the two together, and that's the chorus of this song. I've got this and this, put it together, that's the verse.
Great, exactly. So I think something that's a good example, and I think most of you have seen those videos of those guys who do all the songs using 4 chords. Does anyone know their name? I've just forgotten their name.
The Axis of Awesome.
That's it. That's the one. So they sort of demonstrated how just using 4 chords you can play, tons and tons of different songs that sound extremely different. And then we get a song come out, like the Frozen "Let It Go" song, which is again using those same 4 chords. So this goes on and on and on. If you want, and I'd say to students, if you want to write a pop song, use these 4 chords. Stick to these 4 chords, and you will be at least in the ballpark. So when we do that, we say, look, knowing these chords, being able to play these chords and being able to play a few simple rhythms, etc., being able to break it down, these are the skills, and now you've got the skills to go and play thousands of songs. Rather than me just teaching you 1 song today, how about we learn the skills and I teach you thousands of songs? Would that be better? Which would be a better bet? And of course, they get that. So that's a great point, Ben. So what we want to do is make sure that we sell that particular benefit, being able to cross it across many songs, which is really the main benefit. David, can you hear me yet? I'm not sure if you're...
Yeah, I can. Yep.
Okay, great, excellent. So what would an advantage, David, if you're going to teach me arpeggios, I come to you as a student and you say, okay, this is an arpeggio. What's an advantage of learning an arpeggio? Why would I want to do an arpeggio or practice arpeggios?
Yep. Well, the advantage of the arpeggio is that it's closely related to the chord you're playing. It's also closely related to the melody or the tune of the song you want to play. And you will find the majority of the songs, if you're playing single note songs, are found primarily within the arpeggio, and then with other extensions into, say, the major scale associated to it.
Yeah, excellent. So an arpeggio just takes it to a whole new level, which is great. And so we you know, one of the ways that I present it to students is that I say that using you know, just the chords, and obviously the arpeggios come from the chords, but just using the chords, your music will tend to sound all the same. Every song will almost sound the same. Here, I can play, you know, 10 songs using these chords and strumming the same pattern, and until I start singing, you won't know which song I'm playing because they all sound the same. You know,
another way with
sorry.
Yeah, another way I use to teach students the arpeggios is to relate it to a song. So, for example, I'd say, yeah, Stairway to Heaven uses arpeggios, and these are the arpeggios they're using on there. So you've got your A minor arpeggio and whatnot. And then also, a lot of kids watch Shrek. So I do the Hallelujah. So you've got your C to F. Oh, no,
Yep.
A minor to whatever it is. Can't remember off the top of my head now, but yeah, you got that do da 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 do da do 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 da do da. So those arpeggios there. So relating it to a song, so they understand why we use arpeggios.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. That's a good point, and a good tip is to take songs from some of these very famous movies, because throughout that movies there's so many songs. Yeah, that everybody knows, kids, adults, the whole, and that's kind of the best songs to look for, is the ones that cover the whole spectrum. When you get some teenager that says that they're into some, you know, sort of unusual gothic song, you don't really want to build that into your repertoire, because they may know it and like it, and that's great, and you can use it as a quick example, but don't build it into your teaching too much, because otherwise you're going to alienate the other students. And look, the thing is that we are brought up on pop culture. And even though as we mature as musicians, we get into different things, we still come from similar backgrounds. You know, I've read lots of biographies on different famous guitar players, and look, you know, many of the guys who are elite jazz musicians and so forth, they started playing AC/DC songs, or you know, the Rolling Stones or the Beatles. Nearly all of them came from the same places, the same roots. So no matter how esoteric their music might be today, it's not where they started. You know, very few of them started in that that realm. So using those kind of songs that people know, there's another song from Shrek that I used to teach. I can't remember. It's that kind of first one. It was a cover of a song from the 50s or 60s, I think. And that was a good one for sort of showing different skills as well. But if you pick those songs out of the different movies that are really, you know, the popular kids animation movies, generally seem to be the ones that are the winners. So yeah, so using, and that was the other thing obviously here, is using those songs to explain what an arpeggio is, so they can see the difference. You could take a song that's got an arpeggio in it, a good example is Time of Your Life, Good Riddance, and show it just strumming the chords and say, do you know what this song is? And then, you know, she'll just go, no, it could be anything. Then play the arpeggio, do you know what it is now? Oh yeah, that's Time of Your Life. And that's a really good way to sort of explain an arpeggio, is to show the difference by applying an arpeggio. And also, you know, I used to make the point that probably 80% of guitar players strum most of their playing, whereas if you do it within, you know, if you use arpeggios, then you will become a more distinctive guitar player. It's really the next level of guitar playing. And, you know, it's the difference between being two-dimensional and three-dimensional, in my opinion, knowing arpeggios. And the reason I say that is because when I started, the only arpeggios that I really played, I played a couple of Zeppelin songs that I was finger-picking, but I wasn't using a plectrum to do any arpeggios. Everything else I was kind of strumming or riffing. And once I started to develop arpeggios, that's when my playing, that was with my first teacher who really did that with me, took my playing to a whole new level. But not just my playing, but my ear. I started to hear things a lot more. And that's where, when you do that with your students, it opens that up. Okay, so any questions? Does anyone want to add to that? I don't really want to...
Sorry, talking about the finger picking, at what point would you normally think of putting that back in? Because obviously at some point you're going to want to cover finger picking, but where would that come?
I generally introduce that in like a senior level 2 or with the junior students, maybe not until about level 3 or even level 4. The main reason is that I want them to get confident with the pick first, like to get confident with something. You could do it in reverse, but most songs kids want to play with picks, so you could sort of develop it. And if a student asks for it, if they specifically say, look, I want to be able to finger pick, or I want to be able to do this style of music or play this particular song, then I will recommend them some exercises. Generally what I do is I refer them to like a classical method, and there's a couple of different ones. You can choose whatever you like and just say, just have a look at this book and have a look at some of the basic finger picking exercises in it and get started just on those exercises. It's the same with the 5 picking patterns that we use. As you know, there's a few standard picking patterns for finger picking or classical. If you learn those patterns, that'll get you prepared. And I might even, if I know that 1 or 2 of the students are interested or at that point, then I will dedicate some of the lessons to showing them finger picking technique. But I never pushed it through the G4 classes. I just demonstrated it and showed them that this is what you'll need to do in order to be able to do certain songs using finger picking. Yeah. Okay, so what I want to do is, because I kind of really covered that point, it didn't take long, so what we'll do is we'll just sort of drill down on some case studies generally of where you think you might have problems or where you are having problems with your groups. And I might even sort of move out a little bit into talking about motivating your groups through teaching, when you're teaching skills, because the way that you teach and the motivation that you bring to the group is every bit as important as the content. We, as more advanced guitar players, think differently to what a beginner student thinks. We are not at that point where we're thinking whether or not to continue with guitar, whereas a lot of beginner students are constantly on that fence. They're constantly thinking, is this worth it? Do I really want to be a guitar player? Do I want to sacrifice my favorite TV show or playing my favorite games to learn this instrument, which feels clumsy and awkward, and I don't really think I'm very good at it anyway, and I don't think I'll ever be very good at it. So we're dealing with a lot of psychology opposed to, and think something that you guys might relate more to is your business. And, especially if you're in the early stages of your business, of, is this worth it? I'm going to put all this effort in, going out and doing the flyers, is that really worth it? Am I better off just going and getting a job? Is learning to teach group, is it really worth it? Maybe I should just teach private because it's comfortable, I know it, I'm used to it. So all these things that you have doubts about, your students have the same doubts within their teaching. So understanding their mindset compared to where you're at is critical to whether or not you keep these students long term and you build your groups successfully. Because once you start building your groups, it's not going to be so much about the one-on-one relationship. It's going to be about your performance. A bit like a band, you're not out there, kissing babies like a politician. You're standing up on stage and performing, and your performance on stage will be the factor as to whether or not they come back and see you again. And the same applies within your teaching. So let me kind of throw it back to you guys just to get some ideas. I'll start with Aaron. Aaron, when you're teaching groups, and have you got some groups now? Are you at the group stage, or are you still teaching private?
No, I've got a couple of groups.
Okay, great. All right. So, what do you feel is the biggest threat to losing a student in one of your groups? What reason?
One feeling outdone by another.
Okay, so there's a
feel like they're not as good as the other one.
Yep, great, and that is a very real situation, and it's one that I just got an email from one of the other teachers who said that one of the girls broke down in tears in the group, and then the mother cancelled the lesson, cancelled her lessons because they were on their way to the lessons again this week, and the daughter broke down in the car into tears. And so she's only a young girl, I think 8 or 9, but the fact is that this is very real for kids, and for adults sometimes too, is that they feel so. How has anyone got any solutions to this? I just want to go. I want to get some input. I don't want to sort of give just all my opinions. So I'm going to share my ideas, but has anyone got an idea how to deal with this? No? Okay.
I've got one that's kind of in the process at the moment, because I had a girl who was in a group, and then just after, so I mean, she was a little behind the other student. I thought that would have kind of driven her to like go as well as I thought that she could, but ended up not working that way. But they did really compete with each other for practice. So coming to the end of that month, she was, the biggest practicer for the month, but she didn't come for that lesson to see that because she was already ready to back out. So, and I suspected that what the reason might have been. So I called up the mum, had a bit of a chat. Turned out that was the reason. She just felt like, she was failing at it, and she's just not doing a good job, and she's just no good, and she's stupid, and all this kind of crap. And I had a bit of a chat with the mum and said, well, look, how about, let's have a couple of one-on-one lessons again, and then we can, try and do a group a little bit different. And I told her what I was actually thinking about how to do that, and the reason I had put her in that group, and that, it hadn't worked out the way that I'd hoped. And that what I wanted to try instead was to put her with somebody else who she was a bit better than, but who had more self-confidence. So her confidence could be boosted by going, oh, I'm better than this person, and the other person with high self-confidence could be pushing themselves to go further because they recognise, hey, I'm not better than that person yet.
Yeah, good.
So she really liked that, and she's, oh, that sounds, she was really impressed. I was like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do that. So yeah, I think this week will be the second one-on-one with her, and I'm hoping to then get her into a group next week.
Great. Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. I love it. What you're doing there is that you're kind of matching based on different personalities and different circumstances, which is, excellent. And that's really when you're building your groups, the more you can do that. And one of the things I talk about groups is that when you first start forming your groups, they're going to be a lot of mismatching going on, and that's really just the sorting out process. But over time, what happens is that you become better at grouping. You might change students depending on certain circumstances, as you're talking about there, so you get a better match. You find situations where students also start to sync as they get to know each other. You become better at kind of syncing the groups, and then over time, and there was a real kind of changeover point there. I remember early in my groups how there was kind of all this kind of mismatching, and it was quite stressful in the first 3 to 6 months. Was quite stressful, but then it all seemed to come together. It was just amazing. I just sort of everything seemed to just settle into place, where I had a few little issues in a couple of groups. But yeah, and most people give up in that first 3 to 6 months. They go, oh, the group doesn't work. We hear it all the time, you can't teach guitar in groups, it doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. But that's because they just haven't given it enough time, and they're not doing what you're doing, which is problem solving. And that really is the key to building your groups, is to problem solve. Everything that comes up is just a problem that needs to be solved. It's not something that's impossible to solve. It just needs to be worked out, and that's why, partly why I'm here, but partly why the network exists, is that we can sort of help each other. That idea that you just brought forward, Aaron, is something that will be shared across the network that other teachers can think about. What is the biggest issue? Can anyone tell me what they think the biggest issue is, the biggest reason kids are going to quit guitar? What are any reasons? Let's just give me some reasons why do students quit guitar. Ben?
Not thinking they can succeed. Self-confidence.
Okay. Self-confidence. Okay. Confidence is the big one. That's really the one that I would say is the standout. Everything comes back to confidence. So if a student says to you, well, let me ask this question: is there anything that you don't think is confidence apart from them breaking an arm or a leg or something that prevents them from learning guitar. Is there anything other than that, say something like moving away, that's preventing them from continuing with lessons? Any other reason? Not
only,
really.
only key. I was just thinking, in the unusual circumstances, like if they literally have no time.
Well, time is. I don't know anyone who doesn't have time. I know people who don't have priorities, and I know people who waste a lot of time. But I don't know anyone who doesn't actually have time. We all get the same amount of time, and some people achieve enormous things in their life, where others constantly battling with their schedule. So if someone says to me, they've signed up for the 5-week intro, and then they tell me, halfway through the 5-week intro, sorry, I don't have enough time to practice. My answer to that is quite simple. You do have the time. What's happening is you don't have the habit of practice yet. So the things in your life are getting in the way. If your life is so busy that guitar is such a low priority, that it only gets done if you get everything else done, then I would quit guitar if I was you. But if you really want to learn guitar, just decide on the priorities. And this is a little thing that you can do with students, is go through with them and talk about priorities and actually look at what are the priorities in their life and where does guitar stand in that list of priorities. And then go through and look at the time that they need to dedicate to each of those areas. And then that will tell you whether or not they can really do guitar. So if someone says, look, I've got work, which takes up 40 hours. Let's just say someone's got I don't know, what does anyone know the number? What's the number of waking hours in a week? Who can tell me that? 16 times.
Depends how many copies you've had.
How many copies you have. That's right. Exactly. So let's just, it's 112 hours if you sleep 8 hours a day, which you should. So 112 hours in a week. If you go through the priorities and you look at the way someone spends a week, you say, all right, well, you've got to spend 12 hours or 20 hours, whatever, a week eating. And then you've got, let's say you're left with 80 hours to do whatever, and then you've got 40 hours for work, and then you've got 40 hours for whatever else you do. So that's what we're looking at. How much of that other 40 hours have you got available to play guitar, and what do you do with that 40 hours? And the stats will show that most people screen time, will spend about 5 hours a day, so there's about 30 to 35 hours a week. So if you've only got 40 hours available a week and you're spending 30 hours on here, that only leaves you 10. So the question is the 30 hours that you're spending as screen time, is that really a priority for you? Is that really going to make you, is that going to help you to reach your goals in the future? And I always go, where do you want to be in 5 years from now? What do you want to be? Who do you want to be? And then once we can sort of see that image, that picture, then what we do is we backtrack. We go, okay, now we've got to go back to where we are today, and we've got to look at the things that you do, because what's going to make you whatever you want to be in 5 years are your habits today. So let's look at the habits. It's got nothing to do with how good you are on guitar today. It has nothing to do with potential. Forget all these ridiculous sayings like, I don't have a musical bone in my body, or I wasn't born a musician, or I don't have any natural talent. Forget all this stuff, because it's all been proven wrong. Let's just focus on the habits that you do, because it's your habits that will determine where you are in 5 years from now. If I give an example for you guys, if you have the habit of going out and delivering 1,000 flyers a day, in 5 years you'll be a millionaire. I absolutely guarantee it. Do 1,000 flyers a day. Make it your habit, and it will take you 4 to 5 hours a day to do it. But in 5 years from now, you will be a millionaire. And you can have two businesses, one on one side and one on the other, and you can run two simultaneous businesses, and you'll have done, about 1 million flyers or something by that point, who knows. But the fact is that you will have an enormous result from that daily habit. So it's the same with guitar. If you get into the habit of practicing your guitar for half an hour a day, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, whatever your habit of practice, and efficient practice, not just practicing for, say, an hour a day, but making that practice absolutely efficient, then you will progress at an enormous rate. And that's really, we are our habits. So what we're really doing with our students is, number one, is we're building confidence. And that's where understanding skills, and again, I'm bringing this back to the topic, is that understanding that developing the skills will make you a far better guitar player, and will also open the possibilities for you, because you don't know what you will want to be in 5 years. I don't play the style of guitar that I thought I would play when I was a teenager. I don't know about you guys, but the kind of stuff that I do now is nothing like what I would have imagined I would have been doing when I first started playing guitar. When I first started playing guitar, I just wanted to play AC/DC and Zeppelin. And that was it. If I could play those songs and a few Beatles songs, if I could do that, I was a happy man. That has long since passed, even though I still like those bands. That's not what I'm into and what I do. So this is the thing, is you have to ask, your students have to understand where they're going to be in 5 years' time. And then your goal is to map that out and to show them, because the more you future pace with them, the less likely they are to drop out, the more likely they are to be confident of what's coming, because it's that image of the future that is what determines our confidence. So if someone is feeling a lack of confidence, it's because they actually see a future that's not very good, that's not going to be, they see a future where they're going to be embarrassed or uncomfortable, or they're going to be a failure. So that's the future they're seeing. If you want to change their confidence, change the future they're seeing, change their mindset. So let me throw this, Jeff. Jeff, if you had a 7-year-old, and that 7-year-old was lacking confidence, and you know, they were often emotional in the lesson, in tears, what would you do? What's your response to that?
Yeah, the emotional one's quite a difficult one, but certainly in building confidence, I'd want to show them what they could already do. You know, get them to develop things like in a nice slow pace. You know, one little step at a time rather than jumping from one to the other. The emotional one, I'd probably want to, you know, touch base with the parents and find out what's the source of the emotional thing. Is that lack of confidence, or is there something else behind that? You know, so are you suggesting a scenario where it's the confidence that's the problem?
Yeah. So
yeah.
So
really.
Yeah. So sorry.
So really, in that case, it would be a case of like saying, look, you can really do this. You know, let's just look at even just for your picking practice. When you start the lesson, let's do the picking practice and just reaffirm that's really good. You've got a really good sense of rhythm there. You see, you're already able to do this. You know, so we're going to build on that. We're going to get great results for you. You know, in the future, you'll be able to do all of these great things. You know, it's like with the picking practice at the moment. I'm kind of saying to people, do you know why you're doing picking practice? Do you understand why you're doing it? Because I ask them, I do tell them anyway. But then the next week I'll say, tell me why it is we're doing picking practice. What's the point of that? You know, and a lot of the time they will say, oh, I don't really know. Is it this? Is it that? And it's saying, well, look at this. You know, if it's a boy and they're into rock guitar, I'll say, you want to play these fast lead guitar solos. You know, so I'll do some fast picking for them. I'll say, look at this. And you see how I'm bracing when I'm doing it. You know, this is the technique that we're learning. This is where we're going. This is where you're going to be if you keep doing it. So that kind of thing. You know.
Yeah, excellent. So that's great. So you're giving them your future pacing, basically. You're giving them a kind of picture where they'll be. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. An example that I would give, or you know, in this situation, is I'll often talk about how I was in the beginning, how clumsy I was, and how I felt, and that often makes them feel better. With the real young kids, maybe not so much, because they can't quite relate, but with the kids who are a bit older, when they get sort of 9, 10, 11, 12, etc., you know, I say, you know, when I was your age, I couldn't even play the guitar. You know, I didn't pick up a guitar until I was really, 14. That was the first time I picked up a guitar. So, and I just thought I was terrible, and I just wanted to give up. And I'll even show them examples of how badly I played. I said, this is how I played when I was that. And you're way better than me already, and you're only 9. And I do things with my daughter, who's 5 now, where she has these kind of losses of confidence, and I'll say, do you realise the piece that you're playing is for an 8-year-old? Do you understand that? It's for an 8-year-old, and then she peps up, really? Yeah, this is a really hard song. 5-year-olds don't usually play this song. This is for an 8-year-old. And then that gets her really excited. She's like, oh. So I can play like an 8-year-old. Yeah, well, if you can do this, you can. Shall we give it a go? And she's like, okay, let's do it. So letting them know that where they're at is actually really good based on their circumstances, no matter where they're at. Always sort of frame it in a way that where you are now is actually really good. I'll do things where I'll say to students, based on the amount of practice that you're doing extremely well. Imagine if you did twice that practice. You'd just be phenomenal. You're practicing 3 days a week and you're actually doing okay. But if you could practice for me every day, you're just going to be unbelievable. You're going to be on TV. They're going to be talking about you everywhere. Do you reckon you could get it up to daily practice for me? Do you think you could do that for me? Yeah, cool. High five. Bang. Let's do it. So getting them actually understanding that wherever they're at is good for what they're doing, but they can do even better. Is really the message that you want to keep sending them.
So the more praise, the better.
Yeah, and it has to be authentic praise. This is really important.
It needs to be constructive praise and like genuine. It can't just be fake praise. Yep. Just keep it. Yeah, just after if they play something really badly, like one of the exercises or a leaf, for example, it's like that was good, but let's work on this. Let's take it slower. Give it that initial praise. Yeah, that was good, or good effort, then go from there with the constructive side of praise. If you get what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're spot on, Jonathan. It's exactly, and I think we all get this. It's something that we sometimes have to be conscious of because, believe it or not, most of us weren't raised in an environment where our parents, our teachers said this kind of they weren't educated enough at that point in time. Definitely. We've moved forward. People are learning, and it's the internet, obviously, that's doing it. But we're moving forward in the way that we think and teach. But when we were at school, when I was at school anyway, teachers were quick to tell you you're wrong. That there was there wasn't a lot of praise, and your peers and your parents and everyone else around you was very quick to tell you you're wrong. So you constantly had this barrage of criticism, and so for us as teachers to sort of get rid of that and not do it automatically, because there is an automatic instinct in us to do it. I find myself even now, after years and years of teaching, with my daughter sometimes having this instinct to say, no, that's not right, do it properly. But I've got to
especially in society today, there's a lot of negatives coming out from the home. So these days, statistics shows that there's a higher divorce rate with families, with children and whatnot as well. So children are feeling worse off about themselves and their self-worth and that sort of thing as well. So if we can at least give them some sort of praise during their lessons, saying they're doing really well with where they're going, and that'll give them the confidence to get through the week as well. So I've got one student at the moment whose families are in a massive, messy divorce, and he keeps coming back because that's where he feels safe in the lessons, and he feels as though that he's doing something with his life. So that sort of thing as well, as teachers, we need to be aware of as well, I believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You've really hit something important there, and that is making them feel safe in your lessons. Make it a place that's like a rock for them. And that comes from giving them the right kind of praise, because kids are very smart. They will see through inauthentic praise.
They can see through the bullshit.
They may not always be aware of it or totally conscious of it, but subconsciously they know there's something that's not right here. And so, when you're praising them, and it's very easy to give them authentic praise, you just have to find the good in what they do, and the more you do that, the better. And so, for example, if I have a student who's not practicing, they're turning up practicing twice a week, I'm not going to say, hey, great work, dude, you're doing really well, that's fantastic. I'm not going to ignore the problem or somehow dress it up. I'm going to actually take the problem front on. And what I do is I premise it with how much potential they have, or how well they're doing considering what little practice they've done so far. Or how well they did up until 6 weeks ago. Look at this, you were making huge progress. Talk to me, dude. What's going on? 2 days a week. We need you doing at least 5 days a week. Talk to me. And then let's wrap it in some positive, because we don't know what's going on in people's homes, their emotional stuff, especially with kids, as Jonathan was talking about, going through messy divorces and all sorts of things going on at home. So kids can actually have a lot going on behind the scenes, and by making your lessons really a solid, kind of consistent and supportive environment, then these kids are different to adults. Adults are less emotional, or we're just more hardened, if you like, or better at dealing with life. Not everyone, but generally speaking, we don't get so attached to our teachers. We don't get so attached to a situation where we can more easily walk away from it and go, well, I'm done with that. Whereas kids, they get emotionally attached, and often, it's very hard for them to give up on a teacher, especially someone they've been with for 6 months or a year or longer. So when you're working with kids, it's a privilege in many ways, because here's someone who's trusting you and giving you the opportunity to make a big impact on their life, because we really do. I don't know about you, but my guitar teacher and my drum teacher in my teens, two of the biggest influences in my life. That's why I do what I do, probably. So the position that you're in is a huge privilege. So what we want to do is take full advantage of that and give them as much as we can. And the whole idea behind G4 is that you have a business where you don't have to work exhausting hours. You can work less hours, 20 hours or less, actually teaching, and you can give as many kids in your area as much as possible. So when you don't have to work long hours, you've got a lot more energy. So so teaching groups, you can inspire them. You can come out and do a full show. It's a bit like getting on stage and playing, every night for 8 hours to make a living. That's an exhausting way to make a living, and you're not going to be very good. You might be able to go through the motions, but there's a point where you're just going to get so tired and burnt out, and by the end of that sort of 7 hours of playing gigs, you're really going to be playing pretty badly. You're just not going to be there. And it's the same with your teaching. If your teaching is not these long periods of teaching less than 20 hours a week, preferably about 15, which is what I was doing, and earning $3,000-4,000 a week, that's the goal. As a teacher, if you want to go to entrepreneur, which is hiring teachers to step in, then you can pay them well for their time as well, and you keep earning money, and then you go to the next level. But the idea is that you want to be giving, you want to work less and give more in the time that you're there. So that when you work with your students, that you can really get down to these things and become an expert at nurturing kids to become musicians. And that's how I see it, is we're using music as a way of giving them something that's really a gift. I don't know about you, but guitar, for me, has been an absolute life gift. It's something that's been there for me the whole time, that I can rely on, that I love, that I feel connected to, and it's something that, it connects me to other people. You guys, for instance. So we easily connect with other people who play guitar. We know we're sort of in the same space as far as that's concerned. So it really is a gift that you're giving to your students. So we're sort of getting to the end here, but what I want to sort of throw this at you guys towards the end is just to give me, I'll go around each of you, and just to give me an example, if you like, to keep it on topic, of where, an example of where you've used the skills to teach, you've used, say, a song or something for teaching a skill. Just give me some example that you've used. It might be a song that you've used to teach a certain skill, or something else that you've done, anything related to teaching skills that you've had success with. So I'll start with you, Aaron. Can you give me an example, a song or anything that you've done?
I've recently started using the Sweet Child of Mine intro with picking, because particularly if people are thinking, oh, well, like, seriously, what are we doing this for? And then I say, okay, well, look at this. Have a look at my right hand while I'm doing this, and then they start looking at my left hand, and then when they start looking at my right hand, they're like, oh, wow, okay, and so they suddenly see picking in a completely new light, and I say, look, if we can start with the picking, then anyway, you know the deal. But yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
We're locked up, guys.
Hello. I think we might have lost David by the looks of that.
Yeah. Dave mentioned something about his a telephone company or something doing work.
Yeah, Telstra's doing some revamp up that way. So yeah. Well, let's keep going around. Hey. So the next window I've got across is Ben. Is he still there?
Hey guys.
Yeah. How are you, Ben? It's John here.
Hey Jonathan.
Yeah, g'day. So yeah, how have you thought about the whole? What are your ideas of what you have been using the skills for?
My standard one for the first 3 chords we do is You Never Can Tell, C'est La Vie by Chuck Berry.
Good song.
Yeah, the one from Pulp Fiction. So all the adults like that one.
Yeah, nice.
A bit old for the kids, but they still enjoy it. It's quite jaunty, so.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I guess. Yeah, I use, especially with arpeggios, like I said before, I use Hallelujah for the kids, and then I look at the intro for Stairway to Heaven with the adults. So yeah, I do. Jeff, what about you?
Yeah, me. Okay, yeah. For the arpeggios, everybody I think has done Good Riddance. And Stairway to Heaven. Actually, one for the girls is Taylor Swift. I think we're never ever gonna. What is it? Never gonna be together. Something like that. There's a little arpeggio at the beginning, which is quite a hard one for the kids, but they'll like the song, so that's a good one. And also for the picking practice, sometimes I'll play people Guitar Boogie from the AMEB book 1, the old Tommy Emmanuel thing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, good example of how
doing that with a student at the moment.
Yeah, and even if they don't know it, they say, "Oh, that's good," that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Even the kids, if they don't know it, they kind of think, "Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I like that." So.
Yeah, and there's lots of good little phrases in there too they can take out, and then you can put into like blues playing and soloing, eventually down the track as well, like the improvising side of things. So,
yeah, and you can say like, "Oh, there's a mixolydian in there." If you're a bit more advanced, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, there's a blues scale. Yeah.
How about David?
you guys mentioned quite a bit with the songs. I mean, House of Rising Sun, uses arpeggios. Every Breath You Take, Police, I've done that. With the more advanced students I've got, which are outside of the G4, because I've just started that piece. We take a look at, say, the minor pentatonic, and then take a look at, say, the Mixolydian scale over the top of that, or the Dorian scale, and just show that with, adding 2 notes, to an A minor pentatonic scale takes you into the world of modes and major and minor scales. So it's, sort of, around starting with the arpeggios, finding songs relate to that, and then for the more advanced students, to sort of try and relate that to the arpeggios and the chord shapes,
Yeah.
Yes, wait.
Cool. I think Dave's had it. He's a goner.
Yeah, so
You're right.
Because there's nothing.
I just got a message from him on Facebook.
Oh, really? Okay.
Sorry, guys. He can't seem to get back in. So, yeah. Or it's on Google Talk or something. So, some sort of message.
Yeah, he must be on his phone or something, because his line must be down.
Yeah.
Do you think we should leave it there
Okay. No? Strange noises.
Yeah, he's just messaging on Google Chat now. So
right.
got the old phone happening on Google Chat. So yeah. Oh yeah. So I wonder if we can just is this automatically go up on YouTube? Does it? Part of Dave's thing, or?
No. I think he must be recording it somehow and then pushing it up.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
No. Are we off air now then?
I don't think so. That's 5. That's all right.
No. Yeah, that's all good. Well, let's leave it there, eh?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and go from there. So it's been awesome. Yeah, I'm glad I finally got to come to one of these